Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Yesterday with COD Next, we of course got our major reveal for the MW3 update for Warzone. This is going to be the most game-changing update we've seen maybe in Warzone history, if I'm being honest, considering what Warzone 2 is now and what it's going to be with the MW3 integration. It's night and day, honestly, in terms of how things are going to feel, play, and behave. And with that, I wanted to go over my general thoughts and opinions on the Warzone update coming with MW3, what I like about it, what I don't like about it, what I'm sort of neutral about with it as well. So as we get into it, if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it, would be seriously appreciated. As always, much love to everyone who does take the time to do so. And if you guys are new here, you want to guarantee we're always up to date with absolutely everything going on in COD. I got you covered on a daily basis, obviously with the beta as we approach launch. MW3 and Warzone news, updates, everything going on is here every single day. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those post notifications. With that said, I've written down a bunch of notes for my various thoughts and opinions on Warzone so far. And going through, the first thing I want to say is that, man, what were we doing this past year? It really is one of those situations where I feel like we look back at MW2 and Warzone 2, the first initial year here, and it's just like from Men in Black, the whole like the neuralizer thing. They click the button, the flashy thing comes on, and makes you forget. That's what I want to do with this past year of Warzone, because like we obviously saw so many things go wrong with Warzone in the past year. MW3 really seems to be turning around a lot of them, most things. It's not a perfect game by any means, but let's start first with some of the things I'm a bit more neutral about. Things that are all right, I don't really care if they're in the game or not, they are what they are. Also, any of the actual gameplay footage you guys see in the background is from my boy Espresso. You guys always see him playing with me on stream or in the videos, so if you guys want to go check out his channel, it'll be linked down below. But getting into the neutral stuff here, initially, strongholds and black sites. Yes, they are back this year for MW3 Warzone. They're going to work similar. You go through the stronghold, you capture it, you get your loadout, it'll give you the key for the black site. You can go through and do that as well. So those are back. I don't mind them in the game. If they were not in the game, it wouldn't like crush me. So it's like if they're there, great, I'm gonna go for them and, you know, promote that more high action, high fast-paced gameplay, I guess, basically, by going for those, getting my quick loadout, then just running and gunning. If they weren't in the game, I'd just be scavenging, getting money, and getting my loadout that way. Like, either way, I'm playing it regardless and still playing at the same tempo. So they are what they are. It's cool that they're in the game, I guess. I don't really care, though, much about that. And then also, the underwater fights this year. There's a decent amount of water on this map as well, so there will be underwater engagements. And this time around, everyone gets a pistol. Doesn't matter if you have two primaries, like say you have a rifle and an SMG. When you dive underwater, you're going to have a pistol to shoot. So everyone's going to have that balance in that fight. Okay, I guess that's cool. I'm not a huge fan of water in general, but if we're gonna have it, at least it's a decent playing field regardless there. So a couple of things I'm just neutral on. It is what it is. They could be in the game, they could be out of the game. Doesn't make much difference to me there. But then we get into more of my strong opinions here on what I like and what I don't like. So let's focus on the pros here, then we'll go over to the cons. First and foremost, the Urzikstan map, gorgeous. Much more Verdansk-like with the sort of urban environment. The colors are vibrant. It's clean, I guess you could say. There's not a giant desert or a giant hill in the center of the map or anything like that. It seems like it's a much more balanced map for sure, and I really do like the visuals. And based off the gameplay, I like the pace, and I like the feel and flow of the gameplay that was there. So map, definitely a W in my opinion. Of course, the big one here that stands out to most people, the movement. It was super smooth. Now, it's no MW 2019 constant slide cancel, tac sprint reset, slide cancel, slide cancel, slide cancel all the way across the map, just because it's not broken anymore. There is no exploit with slide cancel, but you can still use that to maneuver around the map. There's also decent movement with like the sliding and everything. Jump shotting is not really as lethal as it's been in the past, which is what it is, but it's just more aggressive. You can actually use movement to your advantage in a gunfight, and there's a real skill gap there, so I love to see that back. Another big W in my opinion is that this has a much more classic Warzone 1 gameplay feel. Obviously, Warzone 2, Warzone 1, you compare them night and day. It really feels like Warzone 2 is the predecessor. It's the 0.5, and Warzone 1 would be the sequel there, really, just because of how the gameplay feels and how engagements feel. This update seems to bring the gameplay more back in line with Warzone 1, with the contracts, scavengers, big game bounties, the general HUD, colored loot. The gulag is not incredibly one-sided, and it seems very small, just dedicated on getting you back into the match, right? The engagements feel and look similar to Warzone 1 as well in terms of how they're playing out. It's not just constant slow paced, duck behind cover. You know, you can't push anything because you're just going to get caught out in the open because there's no movement or anything. Much more similar to Warzone 1 in that regard, so that gameplay feel I'm definitely a fan of as well. The weapons themselves, we can talk about these a bit. The visual recoil is definitely lower than MW2, which is nice to see. I don't think it's as lasery as Warzone 1, where nothing had recoil, like the Grau and the Kilo and whatnot, firing at 150 meters, but these weapons are going to be easier to use straight up. So the visual recoil, that's a W in my opinion. There's no crazy like gun bob or bounce as you're sprinting around. There's not a ton of like movement on your screen, so that's going to help make things a bit more clear as well. All around, the gun play and the weapons themselves seem solid based off what we got here so far. The TTK of said weapons, also phenomenal. Not too fast, not too slow. Over range, it's definitely slower just because of damage drop-offs and accuracy. Up close can be fast depending on how good your aim is, but that was like that in Warzone 1. It's been like that in Warzone 2, and that'll probably never change. You can't have a super slow TTK up close, otherwise good aim is just never rewarded, right? Then lastly on my list for the pros is just the general visibility. This kind of ties in with just the overall map. It's not like foggy or, you know, hard to see over long distances. And then when it comes to the weapons firing, there's not a ton of smoke or screen shake, so you can actually see what's going on your screen, which is good for everyone. Console, PC, you name it, that just benefits all players there. Then getting into my critiques with what we saw in my cons of Warzone MW3 so far. I don't have as much here because truly I do have more of a positive outlook on this game than negative, which is quite the inverse of Warzone 2. If you guys date back to that, the first review that I did of Warzone 2 was predominantly negative. This time around, it's just a lot of small things here and there. The loot, I think, is my biggest, you know, drawback. It's still the ground loot and not the floating loot of Warzone 1. I'm fine with like the world loot spawns being on the shelves and in, like actually interacting with the world itself, but like the chest loot and player loot, when you open up that or when you loot somebody, it'd be nice if the loot was floating. It's just easier to differentiate it there. So I'm a bit bummed that it's still the Warzone 2 style loot. I much prefer the Warzone 1 system for that. There are still a lot of staircases on this map. I noticed the interior of some of those larger buildings. A lot of staircases. You guys might have caught the live gameplay that I reacted to from Jordan initially, where he landed it on one of the skyscrapers and made the bad mistake of going inside and then spent the first 2 minutes of the map jumping down the staircase, right? So that's a little tedious there and could get really obnoxious pending a bad end zone. That's not a huge issue, but I think most of those buildings do also have zippies on the outside and whatnot, so that can be countered, but there is still a lot of depth to some interior that's a little bit overwhelming for sure. Another con here that's sort of been announced is that when this integration happens, the main maps are going to be Yurzikistan, of course, and then also Vondel and Ashika. No mention of Al Mazrah. We believe that's staying back on MW2, so I do think it's a bit of an L that this is replacing Al Mazrah again. I would have loved to play Al Mazrah with this movement and see how things flow with that, with these new guns as well. I think that would, you know, definitely bump Al Mazrah up in terms of like the tier list of maps if they got to experience it with good gameplay and not Warzone 2 gameplay. So I'm a bit disappointed that we won't have that experience as of now. Who knows though? Maybe they bring back Al Mazrah at some point in time in the future. Another drawback for me is the current perk system in the beta. I don't know if they've expanded on this too much as of now, but yes, in the Warzone gameplay that we saw, it was like the similar perks of Warzone 2 now, and not the new gear system of MW3 multiplayer, which I actually really like, with all the various different combinations you can come up with there for mobility based setups or more tactical based setups. I really like that, and I think the MW3 perk system is pretty cool. I hope that that does transfer into Warzone. Like maybe the beta that the streamers were playing is just you know, a placeholder with the perk system. I'd love to see that changed. Then lastly, speaking of perks, Combat Scout is back. That's an absolute L. I didn't like it back in Warzone 1. It was a major crutch. Everyone used it, and it's probably going to be a crutch here unless it has some serious drawbacks or that perk category is super competitive. I don't feel like we need Combat Scout in the game. It's easy enough to see players if you do good visibility on the map, like we've talked about, which is a positive for me. But Combat Scout being a perk option, definitely an L. I'm not really a big fan of that. Hopefully it's more balanced than it was in Warzone 1. But overall, I'm much happier with this product at this point in time than I was last year at this point in time going into Warzone 2, right? Obviously, launch could be different. We'll have to see what they change. Some changes could be great, some could be not great. We'll have to see when the time comes. But as of right now, I do kind of feel like Warzone is trending in a direction where it's back. It might actually be fixed, and MW3 might be redeeming it some, which is kind of crazy to think about, but it's where we're at. That said, that's going to wrap things up for this video. If you enjoyed, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out to always stay up to date with all things going on in COD. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll catch you later. Peace out.